Hey, thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm David. Yeah, we're gonna be together forever. Or else. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Season 2 of the Reaction Shot Podcast. It could have all been different, listeners. You should have let nature take its course. But in the end, it will anyway. I'm so happy to be here in this new season with you, the listeners. So much has happened since Season 1, and I couldn't be happier. One of the biggest things to make note of is I'm now officially a part of the You Run Podcast Network. A network jam-packed with some amazing creators with a wide range of podcast topics. Hop on over to the You Run Podcast webpage. That's yourunpodcast.com. And check out all the other amazing talents that are featured. There is one in particular that I'd like to point out though, and that's the Horror Friendly Podcast, a show that explores the horror genre, and wine, through the female eye. Your charismatic and knowledgeable host, Katie and Chantel, explore the horror genre with a drink in hand, discussing horror films from the classics all the way to the modern. The Horror Friendly Podcast is your new booze-filled horror podcast go-to, part of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find them wherever you listen to your podcast, or at yourunpodcast.com. Again, that's yourunpodcast.com. Go check them out. Now, let's get into Season 2, Episode 9 of the Reaction Shot Podcast, with a POV on fear. Let me leave you with one quote from the film. Do yourself a favor and don't think so much. It gives you premature wrinkles. That's right, everyone. For this episode, I am focusing everything on 1996 Fear. The overview of Fear is simple. When 16-year-old Nicole Walker, played by Reese Witherspoon, meets 23-year-old David McCall, played by Mark Wahlberg, at a Seattle nightclub, she falls in love. David is exciting and charming, and despite the wide age gap, he wins over Nicole's family, except for her workaholic father, Steven. His concerns are realized when David turns out to be a violent sociopath who sees Nicole as his possession, and her family home a fortress to be invaded. Welcome to an all-new episode. Let's get into Fear. Hi everyone, I'm Dave and I love movies. So, welcome to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. In each episode, I'll dive deep into a movie of any genre that holds a special place in my heart. But here's the twist. I bring on a guest who has never seen that movie before. Until now. We discuss, dissect, and review from pre to post-production to behind-the-scenes stories and well into its impact on pop culture. Will we agree on everything, or will we have wildly different views? Thanks for hitting play. Let's roll tape and find out. Fade in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reaction Shot Podcast. It's me, your host, Dave, and joining me today is my good friend, Brittany. Brittany, how are you?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's a Monday. We're recording this on a Monday, and I'll let the listeners know we've been having some issues just trying to get this thing started.
Just a little bit. It's
yeah.
Okay.
My emails have been getting spammed to you. My microphone keeps turning off.
I just dropped mine. It's fine.
Just dropped yours. It's fine, guys. So this episode might get a little crazy, but who knows? So with that being said, the episode today, we're doing a point of view on Fear from 1996. So, Brittany, what is your background with Fear?
Honestly, not that much because this came out in 96?
96, yep.
So I was 8. Wouldn't have watched it as an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not. But at the same time, I've known of it for my whole life, and I probably watched it for the first time in my like early 20s.
Okay.
But this is my first time like really watching it.
Sure. So it was kind of like a background movie for you, not really paying attention or maybe fully taking in the story as a whole.
Correct. Like I remember kind of bigger scenes that were probably not really the focus of people, like the scene with Kaiser at the end, and I was unwell because in the beginning I remembered, and then I didn't actually remember what I thought I did, so sure. Traumatizing. Yep. And then the roller coaster scene with wild horses.
Of course.
But other than that, didn't really remember much, and yeah. What's your background on it?
Might come as a shock to everyone, but I saw this when I was pretty young.
Stop it.
Yeah.
I love how you've watched so many movies. Like, oh yeah, I was there at the premiere, like ready in it to win it.
Yeah, I don't remember the first time I watched this, so I can't say, I watched it exactly when it came out. Yeah. But I do know that I was probably too young to fully grasp how the content of the film is and maybe fully understand what's going on. Yeah. Not just on the surface level, but psychologically. But I enjoy the movie a lot. I don't know what it was. I mean, I always liked the horror movies, the mystery thrillers, and I just remember really enjoying this film. So over time, as I got older, this is actually a movie that I will just randomly throw on and watch it. I don't know why. And that's not to say that, before I give you my breakdown of how I feel about it and my actual rating, it's not to say I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I do feel like it's one of those really easily accessible 90s thrillers that, it starts off right away. It just keeps the momentum going. It doesn't have any filler. So it's an easy watch, in my opinion. Maybe a little heavy
subject
on some
side,
of the content.
Yeah, but no, I get what you're saying, 1,000%.
When we start breaking this movie down, that's not to say that's also a good thing either.
No.
Yeah, but we'll definitely get into that. Yes, this is a film that I had it on DVD. Every once in a while, I'd pop it in, have a little pizza, watch some Fear. That's my background, and it's one of those movies that I'm not running around being like, hey, you guys gotta watch Fear. But if we're talking about like good 90s thrillers that just pass the time, Fear is definitely on the list of movies I throw out at people. I think also because it's one of Reese's earlier films, it's an easy way to get people to want to watch it too. And just like, oh yeah, Reese Witherspoon, one of her early works, I
agree with that. I mean, and I love Reese Witherspoon. I've been watching her for years. Cruel Intentions, this the delivery service with Paul Rudd, I think it's called.
Overnight Delivery, yes.
Overnight Delivery.
Wait, I didn't know that anyone knew what that movie was.
Yeah, I actually watched it a couple months ago.
Because I
remembered it, and I was like, what is that movie where Trip, I think it was, he like sends out a thing and his girlfriend or whatever. Great movie. But yeah, I follow her career a lot, so watching this was definitely because of her. Sure. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't like this movie. Like, what is this crazy boy that you're subjecting yourself to?
Yeah, this movie is red flags galore, guys.
Galore, like from the gate. Even his tone of voice all the time.
Yeah, so let's get into some of the stats first. So Fear is a 1996 psychological drama thriller. It was released on April 12th, 1996, so we just celebrated its 29th anniversary.
Wow, almost 30, flirty and thriving.
30, yeah. Yeah, this is the flirty that we don't want from this film, that's for sure.
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. So the film had a estimated budget of $6.5 million.
Okay.
Its opening weekend, it pulled in $6.3 million.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. It basically made its entire budget back its opening weekend. And the worldwide gross ended at $20.8 million.
Okay.
When it was released, it was a little bit of a sleeper hit. It was not loved by critics. Critics absolutely hated it. Siskel and Ebert, good old Siskel and Ebert,
Yeah.
they would usually agree on films, and one gave it a thumbs up and one gave it a thumbs down. I feel at the time it might have been a little bit divided based on some of the subject matter and the technical side of film. As time went on, it kind of became somewhat of a cult classic. It kind of took on its own little audience over time, and now I feel like it's definitely among Reese's more notable roles in the beginning of her career, as we mentioned before. Yeah, Fear just kind of kept on going. It was kind of started off as nothing and grew into a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It was written by Christopher Crowe and directed by James Foley. So James Foley, prior to doing Fear, did a lot of Madonna's music videos.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was like Papa Don't Preach. So, these were big music videos. These were big songs from, obviously, a sensational pop star, especially at the time.
And I miss music videos. What a time.
Zach and I will have music video nights sometimes. We'll just, we
Same.
decide not to go out. Yeah, it's fun. And, sometimes we'll go on, like, artist music videos, or we'll go into, like, genres. We'll do, like, early 90s music videos. It's a fun time.
It's so good. And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, just doing, like, my own TRL.
Yeah, for sure. I get it. I'm glad that you do that. I suggest anyone listening to this, if you don't have music video nights, me and Brittany, 1,000% will back you up that you need to do this. So
2 thumbs up.
Get on it. 2 thumbs up. No Siskel and Ebert here, guys. You got 2 thumbs up.
No disagreements.
No disagreement. I mentioned that when the film came out, it was not a critical darling. People did not enjoy this film at all. So where does that leave us now with our ratings? Well, let me tell you. Rotten Tomatoes, critically, we're at a 47%.
I'm not surprised.
User reviews are a little nicer. We're at a 63%. Over at Metacritic, we're at 51 out of 100 critically. And user ratings, we're at a 5.4 out of 10. Over at Letterboxd, we're at a 3 out of 5. And on Internet Movie Database, we're at a 6.2 out of 10. How do you feel like those match up? Do you think they align? Not knowing your rating yet, but do you think those seem to be about right from what you expected?
Honestly, yes.
Okay.
Because I feel like, especially during this time, though I only know him from like more recent stuff, obviously Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, I feel like he probably had an audience or critics that were like more judgmental towards him. Because I've always seen, like, whenever musicians become actors, they get that like, oh, you're just a musician type deal. So maybe that's why it kind of brought it down.
That's actually a very good observation. I mean, more so than not, usually when people make that transition, critics don't really want to take them seriously regardless of how the acting is, or they really have to prove themselves, and Fear might not be the film where you get the most acting chops to throw out there. Yeah, critics probably didn't want to latch on to Marky Mark being, essentially the lead character in this film.
Yeah. And I mean, some of his scenes were intense. And at one point I wrote, like, it's crazy how strong Mark Wahlberg is, because that kid is just stacked with the tiniest waist, the biggest muscles, and him running through the woods at times. I was like, I would never want this man to run after me.
No, not at all.
Like, what? He's so fast.
He's so fast. Yeah, like
fucking around.
No, filming that, I was like, they must have added some CGI effect to make him look like he's really doing some Twilight running shit.
Because he was just floating through the forest.
Literally though. Damn, Mark Wahlberg, you be running. That's for sure.
You be running high knee in that shit.
Before we get into our rating, let's do some absurd ratings that we found online. This is one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to start off with 1, and then I'm going to go to you, Brittany, and then we'll go back to me, kind of jump back and forth. So I'm going to start this off.
Perfect.
This is a 1 out of 10 from Internet Movie Database with a user review from Zimbo the Donkey Boy.
Oh, no.
We already know we're in for a treat, guys. Zimbo needs to speak.
Oh, Lord.
Brace yourself. I can accept the unbelievable premise of a UFO movie. I can suspend belief enough to enjoy a film involving some incredible confidence. People sometimes do stupid things. However, I cannot relate to this flick at all, as each of the characters, most of whom are supposedly normal, act illogically over 3 dozen times. The film needed a dinosaur to inject some reality.
The dinosaur thing got me.
Sure. I mean, I guess we got Marky Mark in this movie, basically pretending to be a raptor running through the woods, so maybe we can say that's our dinosaur.
Sure.
But this review, we can say maybe these characters are doing some stupid things, but I don't really think you need to suspend belief too much, because I think sometimes people in their teens, hell, even as adults, make some really shitty decisions and ignore all those big ass red flags.
Absolutely.
So Zimbo, Donkey Boy, I don't know how I feel about your review. If you're listening, let's chat.
Yes, because we're confused.
We are confused. Brittany, hit me up. Tell me some absurd review that you found.
So this is actually shocking. This is a 8 out of 10 from Tracy Allen. She said one of the sexiest, most dangerous films of the early 90s.
Whoa. Okay,
Sexiest?
so sexy. Yeah. So we have I can see, Marky Mark was the topic of conversation during this time. He was, it was his first big role. He's essentially leading the film. He has a couple shirtless scenes. There's some sexual scenes, which we'll talk about. But I don't really know if I would say it's a sexy movie.
No, not in the slightest, actually.
What's her name? I need her to slide to my DMs and tell me what she thought was sexy about Fear.
Right, Tracy Allen. We need
Tracy
to
Allen.
know what you mean by sexiest.
Yeah,
because if it's solely Marky Mark in the black shirt at the pool hall, then we can't. No. That can't be the only thing that you remember.
No, man. Yeah, Tracy, we'll chat if you're listening. DM
us. Shenanigans. Yeah. What's your next one?
All right, so I have another 1 out of 10. This one is from CP, also on Internet Movie Database, and the title of the review is The Worst Movie I've Ever Seen. They really jumped into that. The worst movie I've ever seen. So the review is bad editing, bad acting, bad movie in general. The whole thing was so ridiculous. Worse than a B movie. Okay, guys, again, I don't know Brittany's rating yet. Brittany doesn't know my rating yet. I don't think this is the worst movie in the world by any means. I can probably name a lot of films that are way worse than this movie and not even slightly enjoyable, that have really shitty editing, actual bad acting, and as a whole is a really bad movie. So, CP, thanks for not using your real name, because I don't agree with you.
No. Not at all.
All right, Brittany, what else you got?
This one, I did not write his name down, but it was a 3 out of 5. Corny but cool. Wahlberg has presence.
Wow. That, corny but cool.
Yeah. Again, what part of it's cool?
Right. Like, guys, do people not understand? I don't remember the exact age I watched this movie for the first time, but I mentioned that I probably didn't understand the context of the film when I saw it. So please tell me, as an adult who has gone through life things, watching this film is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. From a parent perspective, from a child perspective, like, this ain't cool.
At all. Not even from a friend perspective, because Margot.
We'll talk about Margot.
We'll talk about Margot.
Oh, Margot. All right, so I have two more. One is a 2 out of 10. This 2 out of 10 is from, well, there's like 8 names thrown together, but from what I can see, it's like Bunda Lewis Albert. We're just going to go with that, okay? Bunda Lewis Albert. Okay. The title of the review is Fear is Something Else Than Boring. Very short. Why do people warn for spoilers? What is there even to spoil? It is all so predictable and stupid that even the dog knows from the very beginning that he/she will lose its head. Fear. Huh. My only fear is that I am afraid that such disaster will cost me my love for film altogether.
That's dramatic.
Dramatic to the extreme, okay? Kaiser did not know what was coming to him, and you leave Kaiser out of your review, okay? Kaiser's the dog, guys, and we'll talk about the dog, but it doesn't have a good ending to Kaiser's life. And the fact that this guy had to bring Kaiser up and make it part of a 2 out of 10 review makes me not like Boudin, Lewis, Albert, whatever.
Because also, like, Kaiser did not like David, and Toby was just saying that.
Yeah, right? That's ridiculous.
Nobody knew better.
Oh my God. Do you have another one?
I do. It is a 2 out of 5. Violent, creepy boyfriend thriller without helpful takeaways. I kind of agreed with that one.
Okay, yeah, no, that one, I get that.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums up the film if you're really just making it one sentence, a couple words. Yeah, straight to the point. Good review. What was it, a 2 out of 5?
It was a 2 out of 5. So, like, not a great rating, but, like, a good summary of what you're getting.
Yeah, you know me. I get pissed off and it's just like...
I hated it.
Yeah, hated it. The dog knew better.
Right? Like, explain why you think that the dog knew better. Because, like, he did, but even Steve said in the beginning, I've eaten scarier dogs than you or something crazy like that. Like,
He did say that, yeah.
I was so sad. I was like, wait a minute, no.
Not Kaiser. R.I.P. little buddy.
Yeah,
all right, so I have one left, and
okay.
I had to share this one. This one is a 10 out of 10.
Oh.
This is also an Internet Movie Database from someone named Arch Stanton. The review title is Best Movie Ever. Oh. This movie is my favorite movie of all time. I think it's the greatest movie ever. I love Reese, and this is by far her best movie ever. Alyssa Milano shows why she is one of the hottest chicks around. Mark Wahlberg rocks. This movie has everything a movie should have. Drama, action, comedy, romance. This movie is an excellent snapshot of defining life in the 1990s. Much is the same spirit those 1980 montage movies did a decade past. What I mean by that is if you are trying to explain what the spirit 1980s were like in the movie form, one might say, well, take a look at Better Off Dead or Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, and Real Genius, etc. You want to describe clothing styles, slang, vocabulary, the feel, and the attitude of the 1990s? You get that in this movie, Fear. The music, although not in the soundtrack from the group Bush, is awesome and again captures what the 1990s were all about. This movie is highly underrated. I would put this movie up against The Godfather any day. Furthermore, I know I'll get flamed for my review of this movie, but I don't care. LOL. This movie is awesome.
Not the LOL. That's hilarious.
I want to meet this guy just because he is so passionate about this movie. Like that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a review. Agree with it or not, that is a review. He literally summarized everything and said exactly what made him love the movie so much. So guys, this movie from Arch Stanton is up there with The Godfather, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, and all the other things I said I don't remember because it was a long review. But that.
But honestly, I understand what he's saying.
Like 1000%.
he's not wrong. As
He's
it's
not
playing
wrong.
in the background, like you look at the people that they casted for this film, and like Alyssa Milano is fantastic. I grew up watching her and Who's the Boss and Charmed. Like Charmed was my jam. And like she is an attractive human being. We got Reese Witherspoon, she's on fire. We got Mark Wahlberg, who is in a group and like breaking out in the acting scene. They were just hitting one after another.
They nailed it.
It was just the context and the all the situations in the film that just really takes me places that I don't want to go.
No, I totally get it. All right, Brittany, with all these reviews, all these ratings being talked about, I think it's time for me to ask you your reaction. But I do want to say we're going to do something a little bit different this time. Okay. We're going to really break down our ratings, okay? We're going to do a couple of different categories, and we're going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. For instance, I'm going to say writing. So writing as a whole, on a scale of 1 to 10,
yes.
What do you rate the writing of Fear?
So is the writing like the subject of the film or the dialogue of the movie?
The writing, yeah. So the writing to me would be if someone walked up to you and handed you this script and said, read my script. As a whole, how do you feel about the writing?
Honestly, I would give the writing a 6.
Okay.
Like it's not bad. It's not a bad script. It's not a bad concept of like a teen just trying to live her life. She just moved with her dad after not seeing him like for a couple years. So like it makes sense.
Sure.
So I would give it a 6.
Okay. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It definitely has its flaws. I feel the script could have been fleshed out a lot more. Some of the dialogue felt a little clunky, but overall, I think it captured kind of what that guy said. It captured like the essence of the 90s, like the warehouse parties. We didn't have cell phones then, or only the super rich people had any type of like cell car phone, and the Zach Morris phones. But it's people were hanging out. We're capturing that, the dialogue that they're having, and the general idea of the subject matter. I feel like they definitely tapped into. There's things I would change, but overall, it got its point across, and for the most part, captured exactly what it was trying to tell. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Now, let's jump into the directing. How do we feel about the directing? I'm talking about the camera work, the actual visual of what we're seeing. How did you feel about that?
Honestly, gave it a slower rating. I give it a 4.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of scenes that were like the camera was just like every which way, and I don't know if it was to represent the activity that was happening, like whenever Steve is running through the forest. So like it's clunky on our end watching it instead of like his point of view, which made more sense whenever it was happening, or it's just like different angles and different scenes that we could have maybe seen better, like the scene whenever Steve goes into the house, and just different things.
Sure. No, I agree. You did a 4 out of 10. I did a 6 out of 10. A lot of mine, I agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of that, in my opinion, stems from being a music video director. Those quick cuts, quick flashes, not really focusing on maybe the entire scene that we should be focusing on. You mentioned whenever Steven goes into the house, Mark Wahlberg's their house, their little hangout or whatever the hell that place is, and they were very tight shots. We're very tight in on Steven, where I feel like we could have had a broader perspective
to see like everything that was actually happening instead of like flash, because you're just seeing bits and pieces of it.
Yep. And then we talked about the running in the woods, and you mentioned that being very flashy or shaky. That to me was the music video, those quick cuts, and multiple angles and the editing of just throwing it together, chomping it up really fast. So completely agree with you. I did rate it just a tiny bit higher. I did think there was a couple pretty good shots. I also like the shot when David is getting ready to break into the house towards the end of the film, and he's in the people.
Yeah,
that angle.
That's a dope shot.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, Brittany, what about the acting overall? This comes from everyone. Anyone you see on screen, there's going to be people that bring it down a little bit. There's going to be people that elevate it. Overall, how do we see the acting? And then who is your standout?
I would give it a 7. Okay. And my standout, honestly, surprisingly, Mark Wahlberg, because he does, as much as I hate his character, he does have a very layered situation that he has to do, because he has to be the sweet, charming guy, play it up to the family, play it up to Laura, play it up to Steve, play it up to Margot, and then ultimately getting Nicole, and then he flips it, and he's behind the scenes doing all this weird stuff. So I feel like his character was the most dimensional out of the whole cast, because he had to be two different people in one and the same at the same time.
True. All right, so you gave it a 7 out of 10. Mark Wahlberg is your standout.
Yes.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And my standout is Amy Brenneman. I think her character is underused and underdeveloped and slightly miswritten. This movie was written by a man. I think she does a really good job with what she has. I think the scenes that she's in, she really owns the character as a whole. I really like Amy Brenneman in this movie. I think her facial expressions and reactions work really well. She's my standout. Because I'm so familiar with Reese, I think it's obvious that I think she does a really good job. I think William Peterson does a good job as the dad. But I really do think that Amy Brenneman was kind of a shock to me how good her acting was in this. So that's who stands out for me.
I agree. And especially in the home invasion scene when she's screaming, gets her mouth taped up, and she's acting without speaking, and you can tell she's conveying just a lot of sympathy and fear just fear worrisome about the girls and just all the stuff. So I agree with that. Cool.
All right, so Brittany, drama. What do you rate the drama in this film? I'm talking about the entire film as a whole, the dramatics of it all, everything the characters are going through and how it's represented. What do you give that on a scale of 1 to 10?
Honestly, I'd give it a 9.
I gave it a 9 too.
It's just up there at all times. There's no chill. Up there. There's no chill to this movie.
Yep, couldn't agree more. What about the suspense of the film? The overall suspense, that lingering tension that kind of just floats around throughout the film. Did it make you feel suspense? Did it capture that essence really well? On a scale of 1 to 10, what did you give suspense?
I gave it a 4.
Oh, okay.
Because it was suspenseful in a way. Because if you watch it, you can tell David is not all there. As much as he tries to be charming, I can see how he fooled people, but at the same time, as an audience member, and knowing what I know about people at 36, I'm no, you're off. There's something wrong with you. And then, sure enough, he's making out with her forehead, eye contact with her dad at the pool. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Insane. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I rated it a tiny bit higher, but I do feel they could have tapped into the actual suspense of it all. We mentioned the drama being really high on our scale. I feel like the suspense had the opportunity to really go there as well. Yeah. I gave it a 6 out of 10. You gave it a 4 out of 10. So I do think there was some suspenseful scenes and a little bit of tension, but
they didn't hold long enough, I feel.
Thank you. Yes, and I feel like the last act of the film is so abrupt and over once it starts, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
So we'll talk more about that. But What about the violence in the film? You know, there's some murder. What do we think the violence is like? A lot of murder.
I would say a 9.
9? Okay.
Because it truly comes out of nowhere, but once it does, it's just like everybody's getting swiped, and you're just like, where? How did we even get here?
Yeah, for real. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Where I do feel obviously there's a lot of death, but I also feel like the deaths are just kind of dead. There's no real lingering response to that death. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think the most brutal death in the film, as we mentioned, is Kaiser, where our poor little dog. For anyone who has not seen this film, obviously you guys know our episodes are spoiler filled, so you're welcome. But Kaiser is a German Shepherd, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Kaiser has a doggy door in the house, and Kaiser sticks his head through the doggy door, but it's not actually Kaiser because Kaiser has been decapitated, and the doggy head falls through the dog door, and one of the goons sticks their head through the doggy door too because he had just killed their dog. Yeah. And it's pretty frightening, really fucked up. I don't like animal deaths in film at all. You know, humans, some of these guys, see you the fuck later. But yeah. Kaiser, innocent little dog. I hate violence against animals, and this just, it happened, and I feel bad for him.
He was just curious. He was just answering to his name.
It's fine.
He said somebody said, "Come here, boy," and that's what he did.
And yeah.
Unwell.
I don't even want to make jokes about it because
I know, because it's just like, so whenever it happened, poor Toby, like that little boy. Traumatized.
Brittany, action in the movie. Where are we at with action? Did you feel like there's a lot of action happening in this film? This doesn't have to actually be action in terms of Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, and Top Gun, things like that. You know, this action is just the pacing, the overall things that are constantly happening. How did you feel about that?
I gave it a 5 because there are action moments. I feel like it's very, like we said, with the like music video directing, they're very like quick shot. I feel like the most action shot was Steven and David fighting, which was crazy because I wonder how that went down, like, because that looked like somebody probably got hurt.
Probably
once
did.
Or twice. They were throwing each other.
They really were.
like really throwing each other.
And I'm like, have you not seen his muscles and the way he beats himself? That's fine.
Again, yeah, him punching his chest, I was like, wait a minute, no.
Brittany, what do we rate the comedy in this film?
I don't know if there was any. Like, was it supposed to be funny?
No, I gave comedy a 1 out of 10. I mean, I gave it a 1 just for the simple fact that there's a couple fun like little one-liners, and I think some of the ignorant jabs just kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Yeah. Overall, yeah, there's not really any comedy that happens in this film, so it does get a 1 out of 10 for me.
There was like goofy moments, like between Steven and Nicole in the car, and I was like father-daughter, and I was like, oh, I've had conversations with my dad like that.
Yeah.
But like, other than that, I don't think anybody was having a good time.
No one was having a good time, guys.
Gary wasn't having a good time. Margot wasn't having a good time. Logan wasn't having a good time.
Hardly any humor here, guys. Promise.
None.
So you give it a 0 then?
Yes. Yeah.
Last category is music. Where do we fall with music? How do you think the music was in Fear?
So I feel like they didn't use that many songs like most movies that I've watched usually do. Like they had Bush, what's it called? Coming Down, I think it's called.
Yep.
And then Wild Horses by the Sundays. Other than that, it was more instrumental stuff. Sure. So I gave it a 3. Okay. But both of those songs I really like. So it's not because of the song, it was just the lack of music in the film itself.
There's definitely not a lot of songs in this film. In fact, they actually use Wild Horses twice, and they have 2 different songs from Bush. That Bush song is called Come Down.
Yes.
So they had Come Down and then Machine Head from Bush, and then of course Wild Horses, which was a Rolling Stone song. that
Was it?
they
I
covered.
don't know.
Yeah. So the Sundays covered Wild Horses. Of course, it was used for this film. We'll talk about that scene in a minute. But I gave it a 9 out of 10 for the simple fact that these songs, when I hear them, I think about this movie, and they're such 90s songs. Like, they were so telling of the time. I can never hear, not that I hear Wild Horses playing all the time in places, but I have been at like a store randomly,
Yeah.
and I'll hear that song, even like this version, and I'm like,
Yeah.
roller coaster,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, I listen to this song honestly more times than not because I listen to a lot of 90s music. So hearing it, I kind of associate it with that, but I feel like I associate it honestly with like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Charmed or something else. Like I know it's in a show that I watched, but I also knew that it was in Fear in that roller coaster scene because people would talk about it all the time.
Yeah, so I gave it a 9 out of 10. What did you say, a 3?
Yes,
Okay.
I did, but not because of the songs, because of the lack of music.
No, that's fair. I guess that brings us to our final reactions. I kind of used the new categories. I thought it would make it kind of
Yes.
fun so we can really break the movie down, and then kind of
Yes.
makes it a little easier to sell why we are at where we're at with our reaction. So, Brittany, what is your final overall reaction to Fear on a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, breaking it down, because honestly, I was going to give this a very low score. I'm going to give it a 6 because of more of the things that I do like than I dislike about the subject matter, because that was a really high thing, because I still question like why anybody would make a film like this, because what is the purpose, like what are we learning from this, and who was the lesson for? But like with the acting, the scenery, just the chemistry from the cast, I'll give it that score.
Perfect. If you didn't break it down, what was the original number you were planning on giving it?
Oh, a 2.
2. Oh my god. Oh, got me feeling like Kaiser over here.
Yeah. Oh, I literally wanted to throw my television. I was so mad. Like the one I wrote, the fuck Nicole gave the whole man your whole house code. I was mad.
Everyone listening, Brittany actually texted me this when she was watching the film. She was like, she literally gave him the code to the house. Like, how dumb are you?
How dumb are you? And then didn't think after the first time something happened to say, hey, Dad, we need to change this code real quick. My bad. Didn't know. But, like, she could have stopped that whole bullshit.
She could have.
Save Toby's dog. I get it. That's not your brother. But, like, you like that boy. You like that little kid. Like, that's your kid. You're hanging out with him. And that's the dog. That's the family dog.
Oh man, yeah, this movie goes places.
It went places again that I didn't want to go.
So we've been talking about the cast, and I do want to do a quick rundown of the cast of characters. We've been throwing names left and right. Just a little breakdown for everyone listening. In the film, we have Reese Witherspoon as Nicole Walker. We have Mark Wahlberg as David McCall. We have William Peterson as Steve Walker. We have Amy Brenneman as Laura Walker. Alyssa Milano as Margot Massey. Christopher Gray as Toby Walker. Tracy Frame as Logan. Todd Caldecott as Gary. And David Fredericks as Larry. Pretty good cast, right?
Yeah. I enjoy the cast. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like their chemistry was great.
I agree.
You know, I need to start reading the summary or the synopsis of films, because the whole time, for a long time, I said, how old are these people? Because I knew that she was 16. And I said, how old is this boy? Because he just asked Steve asked him, like, oh, you don't go to the same school? Because he was 23. I was unaware. Which made me more pissed off the second time I watched it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up. So, they do not explicitly in the film talk about how old Mark Wahlberg's character David is. There are times where I feel like they're kind of alluding to maybe he's like 18 or 19, like fresh out of high school, just started college. Yes, Reese Witherspoon's character is only 16 years old, so we're already crossing the line with the 18, 19-year-old age. And I don't want this to sound some type of way, but I feel like that's more common. Like, that's something that happens. Like, you know, you get people who are seniors in high school who want to date, you know, the hotter out of high school college person. In my mind, that just kind of made sense to me. Again, I'm not saying that it's right, but that just I kind of made that connection. But in the original script, it did explicitly say that he was 23 years old and she was 16. With that fact, and them never actually saying what age he was, yes, he is a 23-year-old man who is pursuing a 16-year-old high school student and trying to essentially kill her family.
Which is crazy because, like, what is your end game, sir?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, what's the point? What is the point?
What is the point? Hence, what is the point of the movie? I don't get it. But I will say this. It's the fact that, like, the scene where they go to that rave or whatever and he just appears. Yep. Like, when did you see her? How long were you watching it? Like, there's so many questions that I had that you just appeared and said, "You're not dancing." Yeah, leave her alone. Right.
You're not dancing.
Yeah, like, cool. Neither are you. Goodbye.
Right. So since we're talking about some alternate things here, as I mentioned, he was 23 years old in the script. In a 1993 draft of the screenplay was originally titled "No Fear," and Nicole's mother was actually seen in flashbacks. Her name was written as Melissa Nichols, which explains the origin of Nicole's first name. So instead of Nichols, she was Nicole. And that's kind of where we got that. So we got a little bit of background on the character of Nicole's mother.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to highlight, which this is very interesting, and I really want to hear your reaction. I don't know if doing any research you found anything on this, but I looked it up at a couple of different sources. I did get this specific one from Internet Movie Database because it's more broken down a little bit, but Gary's character was explicitly mentioned as being gay in the script, making David's outbursts even more bizarre to other characters. However, this was dropped for the movie. Also dropped from the movie was a little backstory about David's background, essentially. And wait for this. His mother was a high school cheerleader who was picked up one night by a frat boy from the state university. The frat boy got her drunk, raped, and abandoned her. Just months later, she was disowned by her family for getting pregnant. The rapist was actually Steve. Thus, in the draft, David is using his own half-sister, Nicole, as an instrument of revenge against their father for destroying the life of David's mom.
That's even more fucked up.
Way more fucked up. And when I read that, I was like, whoa, that would have been insane across all those lines in a movie that's already filled with so many red flags and oh my god moments in terms of how psychologically damaging this relationship overall is. To add all of those extra things in there. Now, I will say, I really wish, me being a gay man, it's not why I'm about to say this, but I do wish they would have, used Gary being a gay character. I wish they would have explored that a little bit more. Because I do think that will have raised the stakes a little bit more. It's like, why are you, like, hey, David, why are you acting so crazy about, my gay best friend? There's nothing happening here. And that also makes what happens to him even worse.
Crazier, which has actually happened in the background. Also, at one point, I was like, they would have made a cute couple because they would have. Yeah. But at the same time, if he wasn't even supposed to be straight.
Yeah, that was a lot to unpack when I read that. And at first I was like, there's no way. And I kind of did a little bit more searching, and yeah, it just kind of seems to be there was a couple different drafts in the early 90s. So Brian Grazer is the co-producer of the film. He's done tons of films. Like, he's produced a lot of things. He usually works with like Steven Spielberg. So he always seems to be behind a lot of really good ideas. What he wanted to do was he wanted to create a Fatal Attraction for teenagers. So Fatal Attraction was super popular in the late 80s, and he really wanted it to be similar to that, but for teens. This is like one of the earlier teen thriller films that kind of follow that psychological, sexual type film. I think this kind of opened up doors for that genre of diving deep into things like that. I feel like Fear kind of was the blueprint for those types of stories, I guess.
I can see that. I've never seen Fatal Attraction. That's with Gwyneth Paltrow?
It's Glenn Close and Michael Douglas.
Glenn Close. Okay.
So that'll be one of the next episodes we do, because it's actually it's on my list of all-time favorite movies.
Really?
And I would love to hear your take on Fatal Attraction.
Like, I've always heard about it, and I'm always like, I should watch that movie, but I've never watched it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you will not hear Brittany's voice again on this podcast until we are doing Fatal Attraction. So if Brittany wants to do another episode, it will be that.
Done and done.
Done and done. I think you'll understand that correlation a little bit better once you watch the film. And it is a positive thing, too. Like, I totally get where he was coming from. But Brian Grazer actually came up with the idea for the film while he was on a skiing trip with his daughter.
I did read that.
So I'm wondering, okay, was he witnessing his daughter talking to a stranger, a random man, and wondering, like, oh, is this something that I trust? You know, I think that's interesting. I love where ideas come from, and these are the type of things about films I like a lot, because I would love to, like, pick people's brains. Be like, did you witness your daughter going through something like this? What is happening?
Because I read that on, like, the DVD.
Like, the production notes.
And I said, that's weird. Like, did something happen that nobody knows about?
Do you know who was originally looked at as the role for David?
I don't.
So the studio really wanted one particular person who was an up-and-coming hot actor at the time, and that person was...
Is it Brad Pitt?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leo. I couldn't imagine him in this role.
Nope. So neither could I. And oddly enough, Leonardo DiCaprio was approached about it, and he said he personally didn't feel like he was right for the role, but knew someone who would be right for the role, and that person was Mark Wahlberg.
That's wild. Look at him looking out for his friend.
Yep.
He said, I got you one. Hold on.
Yeah. He said, I'd rather do something different.
Yeah, because what year did What's Eating Gilbert Grape come out? Same year? Close around there?
Yeah, it was before it. So the movie Fear was actually filmed in 1994 and didn't come out until 1996.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to figure out the timeline whenever Nicole was talking about going to see James Taylor whenever she was 6, and then I was like, okay, so if you were 6 in 81,
Yep.
yeah, or 86 or whatever. But actually, that kind of makes more sense. I'm like, because I was confused on the calculation for a hot second.
Oh yeah,
But 94.
Yeah, and then we actually had someone else who was considered for the role of Nicole Walker instead of Reese Witherspoon, and that person turned the role down, but they had said yes, it would have been theirs. Do you know who that person is?
I do not.
That person is Liv Tyler.
And you know what's really funny? That in my notes at one point, I said, this is like The Strangers.
It is. That's actually good observations.
And I was panicking.
You're like, shit, Dave, why'd you do that?
I was like, I gotta turn this off. If it was any more violent, like a horror movie, that would actually be the scene from The Strangers.
Yeah.
For sure.
I agree.
That's crazy.
That makes sense.
But that's interesting that they wanted to pair Leo DiCaprio and Liv Tyler.
Mm-hmm. I would think that the Liv Tyler idea came from the music video world. you have James Foley directing the film, who has done a lot of music videos with big music icons. So Liv Tyler, being the daughter of Steven Tyler of Aerosmith, just might have been what he was going for. That's just a guess on my end.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that's why.
I can see that because she was in his music videos. Just did probably Empire Records.
Mm-hmm.
There's another movie, but yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah. So that could have been our cast. Now, with that being said, Brittany, let's recast David and Nicole, but recast them as a remake in 2025.
I honestly, who's your pick first?
So I kind of went back and forth. I had a couple of people. So one is very cliched. When I say it, everyone's just gonna be like, "Ugh, duh, him." Jacob Elordi as David. So you have the charming side, but I feel like that charm and jumping into the crazy, I feel like it'd be fun to watch him really tap into that chaotic side. We see a little bit of his aggression in Euphoria, but I want him to really tap into that dark side of that aggression, that creepy stalker vibes. Now,
he could absolutely get there.
Yeah, so
him in Euphoria is crazy.
Yeah, I feel like saying Jacob Elordi is kind of a cop out because he's kind of everyone's go-to right now. But I just see it working, and if we're gonna have someone that's gonna be drawing somebody in, much like Mark Wahlberg was at the time, I think Jacob Elordi would be a good pull for millennials being like, oh, they're doing a Fear remake, and then we have Jacob Elordi for the younger crowd, the Euphoria people, and the millennials who are enjoying those types of things.
Yeah.
And then for Nicole, I was kind of going through a lot of more recent TV shows I've been watching and actresses that has stuck out to me, and I was going more of the TV route because I feel like there's a lot more teen content in television right now. And one teen show that I had watched recently is the Gossip Girl reboot. And there's one girl on that show that I really, really liked, and she was actually on The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as well. I picked Whitney Peak. I think Whitney would do a great job. I think she has this wholesome girl next door, but she's also kind of gives off this presence that she stands her ground, and I think that would work really well for the character. So in a 2025 version of Fear, if we're dealing with the same subject matter but also being very well focused on what was wrong with this 1996 version, I think we could I think this movie could be made really well as more of like a PSA of what to watch out for red flag wise, of those people, those snakes that do kind of seep in and slowly psychologically beat us down and take control of our decisions and how we go about that. I think it could be done, and that's who I would cast at this moment in time. So Jacob Elordi and Whitney Peak as David and Nicole.
I like that. See, I feel like I would maybe go a different route for David because of the physicality of like just seeing him. I would maybe pick somebody who was less obvious in the strength department. Not to say that they aren't muscular or anything like that, but like more of a boy next door type deal. Like I can see Timothy Chalamet or a Tom Holland.
Okay.
And that type of vibe because they can flip a switch, but at the same time it's more like out of the blue type deal.
Sure. Out of those two, I think I would actually pick Timothy Chalamet because he has that kind of warm-hearted, goofy. So I feel like he could pull you in with that, but then just really like flip.
Yes. Because I mean, I feel like you have to be a certain type of person, even though he was more of like a lighthearted Willy Wonka, but you have to like have to tap into something different to be that type of character.
Sure.
So I can see him doing that. And honestly, like watching Girl Meets World, I think Sabrina Carpenter would be a really good, she has edge to her, but she's very like sweet and innocent.
Okay, I actually really like that. We talked about this before, you and I watched Girl Meets World just to kind of jump into the nostalgia of Boy Meets World because I loved it so much. Yeah. And Sabrina Carpenter's character was absolutely the thing that stuck out to me with that show.
Loved Maya. She was the best.
Thank you. I couldn't remember her name, but yeah, so Maya, she was, best friends with Corey and Topanga's daughter. I was like, this girl is great. I mean, she was funny, her sarcasm, she was quick-witted, and her comedic timing was perfect. And she's a pretty girl, but I also feel like she could be hardened too when she needs to be. So yeah, yes. I think Sabrina Carpenter. Okay, I like that. I like where you're going. I like your casting.
Thank you. Thank you. I try.
Yeah, so everyone out there planning on making a Fear remake, which has been talked about, but really? I think it just keeps falling through. Last time it was talked about was in 2020. So
they probably have to get like a really good script because nobody wants to do a movie essentially about sexual abuse and all of the above.
All of the above. All the other things that happen.
Yeah, I don't even want to list them because, good God, it's a lot.
On the topic of people in the film, it's time to play everyone's favorite 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. So for 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, for this episode focusing on fear, I chose Amy Brenneman, who I said was kind of my standout here. So Brittany, when it comes to 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, how did we connect Amy Brenneman to him?
Wait, you said William Peterson.
Oh my God, I did say William Peterson. My bad. I just want to keep talking about Amy Brenneman. Is this awkward?
I love that though. Okay, no, it's not. It's not awkward. But I was like, oh no, I didn't do her.
You were like dying inside. I was originally going to do Amy Brenneman, and then we talked about Amy Brenneman, and I just couldn't stop thinking about Amy Brenneman, so I had to talk about Amy Brenneman again. So yes, guys, Brittany's correct. We did do William Peterson. So we're doing the really cool William Peterson. Brittany, what is your connection to Kevin Bacon with William Peterson?
So my connection to Kevin Bacon with William Peterson is he plays Stephen Fear, and he was in a movie called The Skulls with Craig T. Nelson, who plays Kelly alongside Sarah Jessica Parker in The Family Stone. And then we lead back to Kevin Bacon in Footloose with Sarah Jessica Parker, inspired by Lauren Drake.
Lauren is so giddy somewhere right now.
I know, well, because I saw it, like, Craig T. Nelson popped up, and I was like, oh, Coach, and I got really excited, and I was like, wait a minute. I know that he's in a movie with Sarah Jessica Parker, which, The Family Stone, I love it. Yeah. If I've never talked about it before, I'm sure I have.
I don't think you have, actually. We'll have to do a good episode on that. We'll find someone who hasn't seen it.
I love that movie so much. I watch it every year.
Every year?
More than once, but every year.
I haven't watched it in a long time, so.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, you did good. You brought it back to Footloose with Sarah Jessica Parker. Lauren, I hope you enjoyed that. Brittany was thinking about you for this one. So, Lauren, I was not thinking about you for this one, so whatever. All right, so 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon using William Peterson. Obviously, William Peterson is in the movie Fear that we are currently doing. He also was in Manhunter, the original Red Dragon, the original origin story of Hannibal Lecter from 1986. And he co-starred alongside Joan Allen, who was in a film called The Contender with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, snap. I think you beat me.
But yours was more fun. Yours was more fun.
It was. I was like, I could find a different movie, but I was like, no, but I like how it ties in. I've never seen Footloose either.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the episode and our friendship. So I will talk to you later.
I know the premise of the movie, and I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never watched it.
Gotcha. I actually like Footloose a lot. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I've seen the remake. Kind of.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this podcast and Brittany and I's friendship.
And our friendship.
So everyone have a great night. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I know.
It's okay.
Only because Jillian Huff dances. I just wanted to see it.
Sure. Did you like it? She's shaking her head no and laughing.
No, it wasn't great.
I did not see the remake. I don't see how the story of
Footloose.
It's Monday.
It is Monday. It's okay. Oh, we're good. We're fine.
Yeah. Or something. I don't see how Footloose could work as a more modern film. I don't remember what year it came out, but the story of Footloose made sense just in the 80s and the subject matter of what was going on. Like, I could see that being a thing, but I don't exactly know if they stay super faithful to the original movie, but I just don't see that working, so I was never...
I think they tried, because it was still, like, in a small town, but, like, them trying to get them to not dance is, like, real far-fetched. in this era. Like, what are we doing?
For real.
It was silly.
Okay, so I want to talk about one thing that you mentioned, and
yes,
we're going to have a little conversation about Mark Wahlberg's performance.
Yes.
So, you named it as one of your standout performances of the film, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to take what you said. I'm going to say I agree with you. He does a really good job. But I think Mark Wahlberg is a horrible actor. I think that... Now, everyone stick with me on this. This is, again, just my opinion. Everyone can disagree. I think his acting is so good in this movie because he's being himself when it comes to the... Not any of the crazy shit, but when it comes to the charming side of him and his line delivery and how he's lying, how the character is lying about being a very trustworthy person, his line delivery, it's almost like as a viewer, as a parent, you're like, this guy's lying to you. Like, Nicole, how can you not fucking see that he's lying to you? I think Mark Wahlberg's acting isn't that good. So he was portraying this character by being himself and lying to be an actor. So as an actor, you're a liar. I don't think he's a very good liar. I don't think he's a very good actor. So we're seeing this fake shit that he's doing, but it works for the character, and that's what makes it so believable. So yeah, he goes there and gets into dark places and does some yelling. To me, that falls into the category of being brooding and, you know, owning your attractiveness and kind of just like commanding the attention of the room. I think that's what he was using and kind of hamming up a little bit. And I always said one of the easiest roles to do is to play a complete psychopath, because you can really just go there. You can really just take those steps necessary. Does what I'm saying make sense? I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but does it make sense what I'm saying? So
1000%, because I've seen the movie The Happening.
That was not happening for him.
It wasn't, and the way that I was.
No, so yeah.
So yes, 1,000,000%. Yes.
And I think that one of his best film roles is in Boogie Nights, which came immediately after this. But with that being said, again, I think it was just a really well-written character where he kind of just played himself. This guy lying to get into the porn industry and just kind of manipulating and lying to get where he needed to be. To me, just speaking of fear alone, there's certain moments of dialogue where I'm just like, from an acting perspective, I'm like, that's not believable, but he's meant to not be believable to the people who can see those red flags. It like works in his favor, and that's why it's so good. And that's, again, just my opinion. So he does a really good job.
Yes, because it is so believable because it's like not straightforward, but it's straightforward. So I understand what you're talking about, because that was the character that he was supposed to be playing. So it was very easy for him. But then, like I mentioned, the other film that I've seen, because I've never seen Boogie Nights, and I don't think I've ever really watched any other movies with him in it, because I personally don't think that he's a great actor either.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the reason why I chose him in this is because I know, I guess, where he is now. And this is probably the best that I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily not great, because some of the scenes, like the makeout scenes, I literally, my skin was crawling.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that would have stopped a lot sooner. And there was multiple times that it was happening. So like even that, like to have a control to make out with somebody who is your co-star would have been a little needed to be a skill that he found early on.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. Going back, and I mean, I would definitely put this in one of his top performances of his career for sure. Yeah, I think his lack of acting skills and having to be that liar just kind of works in a weird way. So
yeah, and whenever he did like the unhinged thing and the peephole, which great shot, loved it, because he's like talking normal. He's like, "Let me fuck in the house," and you're like, "What? What?"
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be what I said. So there is a scene towards the end of the film when they're getting ready to break into Nicole's family's house, and David, played by Mark Wahlberg, is standing outside of the door, and he's talking to Steven, the dad, through the door, and from the camera's angle, we see him through the peephole. And he says a bunch of things, and he goes, "Just let me in the fucking house." If you're really paying attention to the scene, he kind of chuckles, like he kind of laughs a little bit afterwards, and just kind of stops. He did that for fun. It was not in the script. It was not part of what he was supposed to do. So he delivers a line because he was having fun, hamming up the crazy, and then he stops and kind of like chuckles. But because of his character, that chuckle that we get, that grin, it works because it's kind of that psychotic like smirk that I fucking got you. You know, I got your family now, asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have it on your TV right now, you should rewatch it, because
I'm rewinding it right now.
when they were editing the film, they took it out. But then Brian Grazer said, "No, that actually works. Leave it in there." And that is now one of the most iconic moments with dialogue from the film that people think of, seeing him through that peephole and saying, "Just let me in the fucking house." Further proof that he's just being himself, and it just fucking works.
Which is honestly scary.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, it's a little scary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that scene, like whenever that happened, I was like, yo, I would have been like, oh, we're done here. We are done here.
Let's talk about the roller coaster scene.
Yes.
All right. Gonna be a little explicit here for a second, guys. So, Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just fast forward a couple of times.
Yeah.
It won't be a long segment.
Hit that 30-second jump.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in the film when they're in the early stages of their relationship, when he's winning her over with being super nice and romantic and charming as hell, and he takes her to the fair. I love the way the scene's shot, though. I'm going to give it that.
Same.
Like, yeah. It captures the colors, all that stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
So they're at the fair, and they get on the roller coaster. And as the roller coaster's going up the hill, David puts his hand on Nicole's leg, and he slowly works his way in between her legs through her skirt. And for lack of better terms, just to paint a pretty picture for everyone, he starts fingering her on the roller coaster. So as they're going up the hill, shit's happening. And right when they make it to the top, you know, as they start to come down, she has her orgasm. This scene is, weirdly enough, one of the iconic scenes from the film, because when you talk about fear, if you ask someone, have you ever seen the movie Fear? I have heard multiple different people at different stages of my life say, is that the one where Reese Witherspoon gets fingered on a roller coaster? And I'm like, yes.
And you're like, well, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other things that happen, but sure, that's what we're gonna stick with. But this is the scene where Wild Horses play. So that song, to me, in my mind, is always associated with that scene. crazy. It's crazy to me that this film holds that as one of the iconic moments. And it's sad because, it's an unwanted gesture from him. Granted, she's going along with it, and maybe in context of how the character's written at that moment in time, it is what she wanted. Yeah. But at the same exact time, over time, it was an unwanted moment. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this scene, Reese Witherspoon. Do you know what I'm about to say?
No.
So Reese Witherspoon in 2023 had an interview with a magazine, and they were asking her about her roles in film. Yeah. So I'm going to read you what this says. Just paint a little picture.
I don't know. I'm nervous.
Reese Witherspoon. Why can't I say Reese Witherspoon?
It's the case of the Mondays. It's okay.
Oh my God. I talk about this girl all the time. Okay. Reese Witherspoon said in an interview in 2023 that filming a sex scene at 19 years old for the 1996 thriller Fear was not a particularly great experience. Directed by James Foley, Fear stars Witherspoon as a teenager who falls for a sinister young man played by Mark Wahlberg. One of the film's buzziest scenes centers on Witherspoon's character having an orgasm on a roller coaster while being pleasured by Mark Wahlberg's character. She says, "I didn't have control over it." She added that she requested a stunt double to be used for the below-the-waist shot. She said, "It wasn't explicit in the script, and that's what was going to happen. So that was something that I think the director thought of on his own at the time and then asked me on set if I would do it. I said no. However, I had to. It wasn't a particularly great experience." So she asked for a body double for a scene that was not written the way that it wanted to be filmed.
No.
Mm-hmm. Reese said that she does not associate Fear as a negative film in her filmography. She thinks this moment was handled wrong, of course. But she said if it wasn't for Fear, she wouldn't have had the guts to go for the well-written, strong female lead characters who take control of shitty situations that she then goes on to play. She goes on to do a whole bunch of great films where she, plays very strong leads or plays well-written women who, take control of the things that are going on around them.
Yeah, and she made her own production company because of it. Ultimately, because she's like, why do women continue to be written the way that they are written by men? It's weird. We're done with that.
Yes. I think that's a very interesting take. I feel bad that Reese had to go through something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's strong of her to say that she doesn't, disrespect Fear in her filmography. I'm glad that maybe she was able to find a silver lining from the moment and make sure that things like that didn't happen in the future, not only for herself, but for people. But yeah, you're correct. She did make her own movie production company, and that has always been her focus.
Yeah. But it's also crazy for a director, male or female. What do you mean? No, you're going to do this. The fuck I'm not. Yeah. And it's funny because people will be like, you're an actor, just be an actor. Why compromise themselves for a project? Correct. When you could just simply have somebody else who is willing to do it? Mm-hmm. If she says no, then figure it out. Mm-hmm. Change it. Yeah. And I'm glad now women are speaking out on that in film, in TV, so the narrative is changing for them. But the fact that you hear horror stories, One Tree Hill, mm-hmm. I grew up watching that, and the women of that show have horror stories because of the male director and writer, and you're just like, what? You put these people in predicaments for no reason. Yeah. For what?
And that's, honestly, Brittany, I agree with you. That's why if we put some really smart writers behind this, I think we could do Fear in a non-preachy PSA type of way. We can still, hone in on the thriller side of it all, make it suspenseful. One of the things I think was highly underutilized in the film is the relationship between Nicole and her stepmom, played by Amy Brenneman.
Your fave.
My fave. I'm just going to say Amy Brenneman for everything now. I liked their relationship. With that being said, I don't necessarily like the way her character was written in certain scenes and certain decisions that were made for her character. Yeah. But I think that we could have had a really good focus of the film to have someone that maybe you don't fully trust yet, the stepmother role. And this is the first time, she, at one point in time in the movie, she tells her to take off her makeup because she looks like a slut.
She calls her a slut twice.
She calls her a slut twice. Yeah, so her stepmother is calling her a slut, which, whoa, stepmom, back up.
Chill. And she just moved there, and I get that they're trying to have, the stepdaughter, stepmother, conflict, but like you said, they had a connection, because if they didn't, she would have never been able to go into the room and talk to her about David in general. Or fix her makeup because she had a black eye from him beating the shit out of Gary. So many different things.
So I think that if we were to make a reboot of this film, I think there's a lot of things that we could take from the original and kind of build on it in a stronger stance. Yes. And not have the age gap be the way that it is, too. Just put that out there.
Agreed.
This movie is filled with red flags galore. Is there a red flag that stuck out to you? Or when's the first time, as a viewer, when's the first time you were really like, there's something wrong with the situation, there's something wrong with David? Was it immediately?
Whenever I rewatched it for the first time again, it was the second he walked on it was the fact that Nicole went out of her way to tell Margot to stop making it obvious, but then continued to stare. And then whenever he reappeared at the rave out of nowhere, I said, "Oh, excuse you, how long have you been watching her?" And that was my first red flag. Yeah. And then whenever he said, "Come on, it's safe," you're not safe. You're a stranger. We don't even know your name. And yet here she is with him. Margot is running the other way and says, "See you later." What are you guys doing? The buddy system did not exist with them. No, we're going to talk about Margot in 1 second. But my first red flag was pretty much exactly what you're saying. But there's one moment that I was like, So when they're in the rave and he appears, and then a fight breaks out from Logan with a bunch of other random people and shit goes crazy. And David's like, "Follow me." And he leads Nicole up the steps so they can run up towards the roof. It's very subtle, but it's also prominent at the same time, if that makes sense. She starts to run up the steps and he goes right behind her. And instead of helping her go up the steps, he grabs, puts his, right on her ass. Screamed. And I was like, that's a little, no. You don't. Yeah, why are you touching her? Yeah. You just met her. Back off the booty. But I saw that too the third time I watched it. I said, "Yep. Watch your hands, sir." Yeah, you better put that away. Let's talk about Margot. Margot is the best friend of Nicole. Margot is a little bit more of a rebel than Nicole is. Nicole likes to think that she can tap into that rebellious side. I think she does to an extent, but it's still kind of reserved, where Margot's just kind of this free spirit, fuck the world. I don't give a shit what the rules are. I'm here to have fun. She's immediately attracted to David's best friend, and that guy's name is Logan. Why are you attracted to Logan? Why did she look at him and say, "Let's go talk to him"? Man, that guy is 30 years old. Stop it. He quit it right now. He looked like everything that every parent, and I don't even know how to explain him, guys. It's nothing against the actor. I'm not talking about the man. No, it was the fact that she said, "Look at that grungy guy. Gotta go talk to him." Girl, you're skipping English class. Go to school. Yeah. Also, this is the 90s, so things were definitely a lot different then, but they're just leaving the high school campus and going to these busy coffee shops. The film takes place in Seattle. So they're leaving the suburbs, going into the city to these coffee shops for lunch. And these places, Zach pointed this out when we were watching, and Zach's like, "That place is crowded as fuck in the middle of the day." I was like, I know. Oh, and did you clock how much the turkey with Gouda and the pizza chocolate cake was? No, how much is it? $8.75. Could never be $20.25.
No.
A piece of chocolate cake? For how much? $1? Like, what?
That's crazy.
I was shook.
Shook to the core.
Shook to the core. $8.75. I was jealous. I don't even like Gouda like that.
No wonder it was busy.
Yeah. Everything's cheap. Affordable.
So Margot is best friends with Nicole, and Margot is immediately attracted to this Logan guy who's best friends with David. Nicole watches as her friend goes off of this Logan guy. The night that they meet him and the breakout happens at the fight, she's like, catch you later, and just goes off with Logan. So that's wild. So Logan definitely looks like he's in his late 20s, possibly dancing around the early 30s. So Mark Wahlberg at least passed for if they were trying to go for like the 18, 20-year-old age. Yeah. I'll take it. A little bit more acceptable. Yeah, this guy, no.
His friends? No.
So what do you think about Margot as a best friend?
I personally think Margot is lost because clearly her mom is constantly going on like trips with her new guy who spends a bunch of money on her, all that stuff. But at the same time, don't do what the fuck you're doing, because ultimately she is a victim in the end whenever David snatches her up and forces her to have sex with him. So like you shouldn't be out the house by yourself with these random ass men.
Yeah, there is a scene in the film where Nicole is no longer trusting David. They have, I think, 2 breakups in the film, and Nicole goes to where David lives, and from outside she sees David forcibly making Margot kiss him or whatever, and he makes her come upstairs with him, very, very controlling. It's kind of that scene. Ugh.
Yeah.
Makes me uncomfortable.
Because then the next day, whenever Margot shows up, she's like, you can tell that there's something wrong. But it's not because like, oh, my best friend thinks I slept with her boyfriend. It's like, no, something happened with your boyfriend that I didn't actually want.
Yeah. So
and now you're blaming me because you don't actually know the whole story.
Correct. Yeah. So the whole film, I like what you said. So Margot, we're going to be disagreeing with Margot through the majority of this film. Like, girl, you're making some dumbass choices here. Like you said, it looks like she's had a pretty rough life, and this is her way of rebelling against that and kind of dealing with it in a weird way. Unfortunately, I think that is a very obvious
real thing that happens.
Yeah, it's a character thing that happens with people in real life, and I like that they went there, and in the end she does redeem herself. I always say, something I say is that if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. If you think someone's cheating on you, you have access to their phone for whatever reason, and you're like, I swear this person's cheating, I'm going to prove it, and you're going through text messages and you find something that says, last night was a lot of fun. Where's your mind go?
Everywhere but what could actually be.
Yeah, last night was fun because, we had to do this and that. It had nothing to do with anything sexual, and last night was fun, the end. If you're looking for something, it's going to be there. So when Nicole sees David and Margot's interaction, Nicole is assuming that Margot's all for this, kind of in a really gross way. I hate saying this, but kind of like being passed around through friends. It's kind of how it plays off. I think we know that she doesn't want to do it, but at the same exact time, the way that it's played off, we don't really know. So we're seeing it on a surface level. So Nicole is seeing it on a surface level. She's seeing what she thinks she's seeing. She found it. David's a bad guy. He picks Margot up, throws her over his shoulder, and grabs her ass in a very, very controlling way. And that's when she's out. So the way she's seeing it is Margot's like, yeah, I'm gonna go have sex with you too, and they go upstairs and they have an intimate night together, and the end. So Nicole immediately is pissed at Margot, but the real issue here is that was not wanted. We didn't see what happened, and it did become rape. So
And you can tell what happens only from the reaction of Margot afterwards, whenever David is chasing her down the street in the car and then grabs her and just like
when he smacks her.
I was like, no. But also, even crazier, well, not crazier, but kind of a foreshadowing of kind of how she is portrayed to be, because whenever Margot and Dave are at the house and she's talking to Steve, and Steve is like, Margot, like, tell me what's new, all of this stuff, and she's talking about going to the amusement park, and like she was like, you should come with us and all of this stuff, and he's looking at her, and then David sees Steve look at Margot, and he's like, oh, so I see the type of guy that you are, kind of having an insight of watching her kind of not throw herself, but not be as reserved that she should be in front of her best friend's dad, but at the same time her best friend's dad shouldn't be looking at her the way that he was.
Sure.
Yep. So then David took it upon himself to do what he did.
Yeah. There's David,
and then it traumatizes her at the end, and Logan beats the shit out of her too. It's like, what is happening? This is why I don't like this movie, because so many bad things are happening, and it's not even like bad things, and not to say in a good way, but like these are all unfortunate circumstances that could have all been prevented.
In a way, it's kind of a trigger warning film.
1,000,000%. This film is 1,000% a trigger warning, because I've never been physically abused or emotionally abused to that extent. Not physically abused. Well, emotionally, like, because people are manipulative and like that type of shit. But to see that, I've seen people go through that, and by golly, I would square up to a man straight the fuck up, and I've done it before, and I'll do it again. I don't care, because that shit's crazy. Like, who are you? You know?
No, I completely agree, and that's why I think that this movie doesn't fail at telling this story. It's just, you said something earlier. I don't remember exactly what you said, but it's
who are they trying to?
Yes,
thank you. What audience are they targeting?
Right. I will say, like, I feel like the way this movie is, the 1996 Fear, I feel like the focus was kind of more on the fear from the adults of what is happening to their children.
Okay.
I can
see that.
But they didn't feed into it enough for it to be what the focus was. But they also didn't focus enough. They didn't give us any resolution other than death of taking care of the situation.
Honestly, and that was that's why I brought up that review, violent, creepy boyfriend thriller without helpful takeaways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, like, he killed a dog, killed his friend, killed Gary. Like, what was the point?
Yep. Yeah, there's
to get the girl, and then he ultimately gets killed himself? Yep. What was the point?
Yeah, and also, one scene for me that sticks out that I always thought was crazy is the scene when Steve confronts him.
Yes.
Steve meets him at school, takes him around back, so they're both at their cars to have a conversation. I'm gonna read some dialogue, so paint a pretty picture. Steve says, "David, I don't want to beat around the bush. I came to tell you that you're going to stop seeing Nicole. Now, either you're as smart as you think you are and you'll just go away, or else you're going to make things a lot harder on yourself than they have to be." And then, in 90s fashion, David, played by Marky Mark, had to use the F slur. He says, "You know, Steve, you really aren't a F slur." Steve says, "What?" And David says, "No, I'm serious. You seem like a pretty solid guy. You should lighten up on yourself." Steve says, "We're not talking about me. We're talking..." And then David cuts him off and says, "Yes, we are. That's what this whole thing's about, Steve. Your inadequacies, your fears. Listen to me. See, I'm hip to your problems, all of them. I know you abandoned Nicole when she needed you most, because I licked her sweet tears. I know about things coming apart at work. Maybe you fucking lost it in that department. I also know you ain't keeping up, so to speak, your end of the bargain with the missus. 'Cause if you were, she wouldn't be all over my stick. So relax, Steve. We're friends. We're practically family. Insane.
Unhinged.
That is the psychological abuse, him getting into his mind and literally attacking him from every angle. So then Steven goes to his car and finds it completely smashed by David, and David left a note on the car that says, "Looks like I popped both your cherries." Wow, fucking crazy.
What the fuck? Whenever I paused, because it's a very quick scene, I paused and I said, what does that say?
Mm-hmm.
And also, whenever he was saying that, because the first time I watched it, I did not have captions on, and I usually do, because accents were really strong in this film.
Yeah.
We got Mark Wahlberg from Boston, and we got Reese Witherspoon from
Mr.
Nashville,
Walker.
and those accents were doing something. So I thought that he said, "I licked her tits," in the way that I said, telling her father such a thing. Wow, dare you? and then I rewatched it, and then I was like, I licked her tears. I was like, tears, okay. The reaction was unnecessary. But still, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
Don't talk to my dad like that, and don't smash his car. What?
Yeah,
Get
that
away
is.
from me.
That's just like some of the that's the red flag stuff. Like he picked up on all those little things and just kept all of them in a little
jar so he can bring them out.
In a little jar, absolutely.
And that's what manipulative people do. They like keep everything that they could possibly know about you, and then they'll flip it and use it against you, and you're like, hold on, how did we get here?
Red flag
City.
Yeah. And then right immediately after the scene when Steven confronts him about everything, he then leaves and David starts beating his chest really, really hard. His own chest. That's right, guys. David starts beating his own chest as hard as can be. Like even the sound mixing of that scene, if Mark Wahlberg was actually hitting his chest, like damn, and if he wasn't actually hitting his chest, the sound effects are perfect.
On point right there.
Yeah, so he then flips this whole conversation, flips it, and tells Nicole that her dad, Steven, confronted him and beat him up, and that's why he has bruises all over his chest.
And then she believed him and told that man, David, I love you. Hard eye roll.
Did you know that every time he says I love you or she says I love you, the other one doesn't say it back?
I noticed that. I was like, oh, weird. That's weird. I thought we just said I love you, and then now we're not saying it back. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Strange.
Yeah.
Wow, Brittany, this episode.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this episode we're getting into it.
Because this movie, I mean, the notes. So I watched it one time, and then the second time I have different notes that are in different color, because I took the notes on my notes. There was something. Oh, the conversation between Steve and Alex, his coworker, whenever he said, she's not going to stay a virgin forever. I about died. And then I said, I really hope men who are fathers aren't talking to their friends about their daughter's virginity, because don't actually ever do that.
I'm glad you said that, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really catch that or pick up on how gross that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not saying that all movies need to be written by women to have these types of things, but in context of what we're dealing with in this film, we can tell it's written by a man who's having these manly type conversations about women, and it's not giving us the reverse. It's not giving that fight back. It is enough to get the story going, but
yeah.
That's where we're failing. That's where we're failing.
Yeah, agreed. And then he carves Nicole Forever on his chest. Like, it was just, once he really hit peak crazy, he said bet, and then just kept going and going.
That's a scene that's used a lot in promos for the film. I think one, because Mark Wahlberg is shirtless, and two, it kind of shows the crazy, because he carves into his skin, so he's bleeding, and it says Nicole for Eva. Not even ever. Yeah. It's Eva. No, and that's why that one review just kept saying Eva, because, you know. So he's carving it, so there's some blood, and then he takes the ink from a pen and rubs it in the wounds and then wipes it off, so it's almost like a tattoo.
Yeah.
Insane.
Insanity. And then, because so it was, and this is where, like, the sequences were just, like, hitting it. So we got Steve and Alex talking about virginity. Then we go to David carving that stuff in his chest. Then we go back to the school where Gary gets snatched by David. It was just like beep, 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 beep. And then I realized, I said, wait, did he just kill Gary?
Yeah, guys.
Because it was so fast.
Gary, the non-gay character, gets his neck snapped. Gary makes a small little trip, falls over, and David comes up behind him and snaps his neck. And it's real fast and very violent.
He flew in the air like a vampire.
I'm telling you, it's Twilight. It is Twilight, yeah.
Like...
the original Edward Cullen. Maybe this is like the origin story.
They are in Seattle.
Guys, I don't like Twilight, so this is probably about as much Twilight talk you're getting from me.
I genuinely do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Like, I hate to love it. Like, I read the books, and then I threw Breaking Dawn halfway because I thought it was a cop-out and it was stupid. So I didn't finish it, but I've seen all the movies. They're terrible, but they're great at the same time.
I'm glad you like them.
Yes.
I have those movies, too. I get it.
Yeah. And I'll always watch. If it's on, I'm watching it.
Love it. That's how I feel about Fear.
Yeah. I see that. I feel that.
Yeah. Any more notes you want to chit chat about? I feel like we got some funny stuff in here. We got some real deep stuff in here. So whatever else you got to throw.
Honestly, I was really happy of the throwdown between Steven and David. Ultimately, him throwing him out the window. I don't really know how that could occur, but the leverage that he acquired, and then somehow got him onto that rock, whatever, that then didn't exist on the next scene whenever the boat and they were running the credits. But, like, people aren't really watching that. It is what it is. I was paying attention. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. No, Brittany, I paid attention too. So let me talk about that scene for a second. So Steven, at the end of the climax, so I will say the third act, I mentioned this earlier, the third act comes on so fast and so abruptly. Yes. And I feel like we could have played into this scene a little bit more, made it way more suspenseful, especially for the house being referred to as a smart house, and there's nothing smart about it.
They got in very quick.
Very quick. I mean, they used a drill to get through the window. So okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
Yeah, we're gonna suspend our belief here. But the final confrontation between Steve and David. As soon as he throws him out the window, there's a shot, and I'm hoping you probably noticed it. Mm-hmm. The shot when he throws him out the window, and then it cuts like changes. Outside. It almost looks like it's the moon is everything's so fake. The moon is so big, and it's almost like David flies past the moon like a witch on a broomstick. Yeah, and it looks like claymation, and he like lands on the rock, and it's like, and it's so dramatic, and it's like way too limp to be an actual singular
blood.
Yeah, I'm like, what just happened? I even rewound it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a scene out of Bewitched, where they have to get her to leave the house, but then they have to like zoom out, and it's like this little picture, but the moon is gigantic.
There you go. Yeah,
so bright. You're just like, I don't think that we're watching the same movie anymore.
Yeah. So the next part, you called it out. I noticed the boat thing. Did they not find David's body? It wasn't there.
No, but also that platform wasn't there because how the house is and where the boat was, like the pool is in the middle, but where he was thrown out was out of Nicole's window. So unless her room was on the other side, I don't really know. Unless it was on the other side and that's where the platform is, no, you don't see the body. Why would there be water people to get, like, unless the tide got higher?
Yeah. That's what I thought. Maybe they were looking for his body. And
because it was the next day.
Yeah.
Opposed to nighttime and, like, the ocean moves and all that stuff. Okay.
plot twist for you too.
I'll leave that. And I'll just go with that because otherwise, because I said, where is his body if he got thrown out of the window and landed on rocks?
Like I heard all my life, where are you, David? Where are you?
It's like, I'm right here.
I'm right here, floating in the water.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry. What if he survived that fall and he's just waiting for revenge on Nicole and the family?
Well, guys, it sounds like we have a requel that's going to be happening. Yeah. Got a requel going on here, guys. Yes. David and Nicole are coming back, so.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Oh, but it's kind of like Big Little Lies, but different. Sure. So.
Hey, it really is.
And that was kind of the vibe not towards the end, but like that was the kind of the vibe that I was getting, that Reese Witherspoon ends up as, because she has those strong rules now that are more so like, no, we're going to fight back, opposed to, why is this happening to me?
Why am I the victim?
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, take a stand. Beat that man.
Take a stand. Beat that man. Yeah. There's some new motto, guys.
Yeah, get it. Especially when they do stuff like that. Like, what
For
the
real.
fuck? Don't
when the red flags are that prominent, guys, you gotta...
Yeah. Cut it.
Well, Brittany, is there anything else? Anything else you got?
No, that's it. That's our PSA of the day.
Yeah. If you guys get anything from any of this.
Yes.
So my recommendation is definitely check out Fear if you haven't. I will say definitely some trigger warnings in there with no real resolutions. But overall, I enjoy the film for what it is, for its time. There's some controversial things that happen that surround the film, but I do think it warrants at least a watch. It won't end up being your favorite film of all time by any means, but it definitely captures what the 90s thrillers were all about. And to me, that's what makes it enjoyable. It was one of the breakout roles for Mark Wahlberg. It was one of the breakout roles for Mark Wahlberg. I can't.
I know. No, it's great.
It's fine.
It was. And Reese did a fantastic job. We had William Peterson and Amy
Brenneman. How you
Amy Brenneman. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. We love her.
We love Amy Brenneman.
Yeah, and Toby.
And Toby.
Shout out to Toby for hitting that reverse and hitting that guy.
Christopher Gray.
He saved the day.
He did. Toby got in that car and he hit reverse like he knew
he was the MVP of that night right there.
Absolutely.
Because especially after his dog got like that.
Yeah. He said, "You fuck with my dog, I'm going to run you the fuck over," in reverse.
Exactly.
I can't reverse to save my life, so.
He said,
I'd miss him.
He's 9? Like... He already knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 years old, teach me how to back up.
I would miss. Mm-hmm. He knew.
Well, Brittany, I really appreciate you doing this episode with me. Thanks for watching Fear.
Absolutely.
Did your reaction change at all, or are you still sticking with your 6?
I'm going to stick with my 6, but I'm glad that we talked it out to like really know what I enjoyed about it. Yeah. But ultimately, I would find somebody. I would pull a Liam Neeson on a human being. For sure.
Absolutely. Well,
yes.
My number stays the same as well. I'm at a 6.5. I do enjoy this film. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Reaction Shot Podcast. You can find me and everyone else on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. Again, thanks for doing this with me, and I guess we'll end it here, and hopefully we'll get a nice little remake, and it will...
And see what happens, and we can do another reaction.
We'll grow from our mistakes.
Exactly.
All right,
as long as we learn. Yes.
Yep, and we'll be doing Fatal Attraction next, everyone, so please tune into that.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks for listening, Brittany. Thanks for joining me. Have a good night. Thanks again. I appreciate you.
Bye. Appreciate you.